He's 3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
A cornered gangster, Sean Combs, who once believed he'd shielded himself from the haunting legacy of music violence, now faces a chilling legal reckoning as Duane Davis, the accused shooter in the 1996 Shakur homicide trial, demands his alleged paymaster take the witness stand. The industry had long thought Combs had escaped the shadows of the past, but the illusion cracks as Davis's defense unveils a desperate strategy, subpoenaing the imprisoned mogul to testify, hoping he'll either perjure himself or confess to a decades-old conspiracy. Davis, facing life behind bars, claims Combs offered $1 million to eliminate the music West Coast icon, a confession allegedly recorded on police tapes that the defense now insists were fabricated for fame. The logic is twisted. By forcing Combs to publicly denounce him, Davis aims to sow doubt. Yet, if the mogul denies the bounty under oath, he risks giving Davis a get-out-of-jail-free card. The real threat looms as the gavel falls, threatening to shatter the fragile silence that has protected Combs for 30 years, exposing the deep, unrelenting scars of the genre's violent history.
He's saying that, Diddy, he put a hit out on you and Tupac, and that's the reason why Tupac got in Vegas. So, yeah, man. How you feel about that?
Well, first thing first. I mean, that conversation been out there. He put his truth out there. A lot of other people put their truth out there.
The strategy unfolding in the Clark County courtroom operates with sociopathic precision, weaponizing legal, music, procedure to dismantle the prison cell where Sean Combs currently sits. Duane Davis, known on the streets as Keefe D, isn't defending his innocence. He's orchestrating a mutually assured destruction play, leveraging his own guilt to force the prosecution to confront the implications of their evidence. His lawyer, Michael Pandolo, is daring the state to ignore the truth. If Davis is telling the truth about the 1996 Las Vegas shooting, then the alleged paymaster, Combs, must be held accountable. But by refusing to charge Combs, the prosecution inadvertently exposes a vulnerability. Perhaps the paymaster doesn't exist, and Davis is simply a pawn. This is the music trap. Davis uses the district attorney's hesitation as his alibi, compelling the jury to question whether a man would lie about his own guilt for a book deal or if he's just a soldier left to take the fall for a general who remains untouchable, all while the gavel looms, ready to shatter the fragile silence of the past.
The reason we asked everyone to be here today is obviously we are the new attorneys for Duane Davis in the Tupac case, now set for trial February of next year. The reason in particular that we asked the media to be here is that, obviously we're not trying the case in the media, but we want to establish better relations with the
What makes this maneuver so dangerous for Combs is the specific nature of the confession tape that has kept Davis locked up since August 2023. In a recorded interview with law enforcement, Davis didn't just admit to being in the car. He detailed a meeting in a Los Angeles restaurant where he alleges Combs offered $1 million to handle Suge Knight and Shakur, a claim that is specific, documented, and has lingered in police files for over a decade. Now Davis is pivoting, wanting the jury to believe he was merely a witness with no financial stake, unless Combs steps forward to deny it. The defense is betting on the jury perceiving Combs as a desperate man with everything to lose, calculating that a denial from a convicted felon might be seen as less credible than the silence of someone who refuses to testify. This is a gamble that treats the truth as a secondary concern, prioritizing the creation of reasonable doubt over the actual facts, and it hinges on whether the gavel will finally fall to expose the man who orchestrated the bloodshed.
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions. They don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their...
The timing of this legal assault could not be more catastrophic for the Bad Boy Music founder, who is already watching his empire dissolve from the inside, as he serves a 50-month sentence after a July 2025 conviction on 2 counts related to the Mann Act, a dramatic fall from the billion-dollar valuation he once commanded. Forbes estimated his net worth has cratered from $740 million to $400 million in months, and the bleeding hasn't stopped. Reports surfaced that his business management firm, TriStar Sports and Entertainment, has tightened the purse strings so aggressively that his own legal teams are going unpaid, with attorneys handling his civil lawsuits stiffed on invoices and staffers quitting. The image of the all-powerful mogul is fracturing, no longer the untouchable titan who could make problems disappear with a phone call, but an inmate in a federal facility watching his defense lawyers fight for their own fees while a Vegas gangster tries to drag him into a homicide investigation. The defense's confidence in Combs' credibility hinges on the belief that his denial of involvement would discredit Davis's confessions as lies told for fame. But the narrative clashes violently with the allegations now swirling around him. Every public statement Combs has made, from his dismissive 2016 appearance on The Breakfast Club to his reflections on the tragedy during a 2017 Today Show interview, has been an exercise in distancing, framing himself as a peacemaker who wanted to promote love after the East Coast-West Coast War. Yet the defense knows it. The script he's rehearsed for 30 years is no longer aligned with the truth.
I realized Big was that type of rapper that he could get at somebody, and I think Puff was trying to tell him, don't go that route. You understand what I'm saying? But still putting out songs like Who Shot Ya in the intro, but telling Big not to go at nobody, which was crazy.
The deeper problem for Combs lies in the defense's demand that he prove Davis is a liar, rather than prove his own innocence. A precarious position for a man already serving time for federal offenses. While the prosecution seems to treat the Diddy theory as a complication they'd rather avoid, refraining from charging Combs as a co-conspirator and keeping him out of the trial, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department has publicly stated he's never been considered a suspect. Yet silence isn't exoneration, and by distancing himself from the proceedings, the prosecution risks letting the defense define the narrative. If Combs isn't called to testify, the state's reluctance could be interpreted as doubt in its own witness. If he is, the prosecution risks unleashing a Pandora's box of conspiracy allegations that could taint the entire trial. This strategic standoff forces Combs into a dilemma where every move, whether to speak or stay silent, threatens to expose the cracks in his carefully constructed image, leaving him vulnerable to the very accusations he's spent decades denying.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he had to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70, that's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
This is where the narrative begins to twist in ways official records struggle to untangle. The defense argues that Davis fabricated his allegations for attention and profit, pointing to his memoir Compton Street Legend as evidence of a calculated cash grab. Yet many of his most damaging claims were made during private police interviews, never intended for public consumption, and delivered under circumstances where protecting powerful figures might have seemed the safer path. Why would a seasoned criminal implicate a music mogul in a capital crime if there were no truth behind it? The street code suggests that naming someone so influential would make him a target, not a beneficiary. Still, he spoke, and now he appears ready to testify that those earlier confessions were lies told solely to secure his own freedom. The lingering question is not whether he was truthful then or now, but what happens if a jury concludes that either version of events leaves Combs appearing guilty by association.
The boy Puffy called me though. Puffy called me back in the day. He called me. He was like, "I just want you to know I ain't have nothing to do with your brothers. You know, I know who you are, but we never met, and I just want to call you man to man, let you know that I ain't have nothing to do with your brothers." Now, why was he calling me, reaching out to me?
The shadow over this trial reaches back long before any Las Vegas courtroom, to a freezing night in New York City that fractured the fragile unity of hip-hop. The 1994 ambush at Quad Studios that Tupac Shakur survived but never forgot, an attack that helped ignite the East Coast-West Coast feud. Investigative reporter Chuck Phillips later uncovered claims that the assault was allegedly meant to be a staged robbery and brutal beating, not a murder, but chaos erupted when Shakur pulled his own weapon and shot himself, spiraling the plan into violence. The most damaging suggestion in that reporting was not that Sean Combs or the notorious Biggie pulled a trigger, but that they allegedly knew the attack was coming and failed to stop it, an accusation of foreknowledge that has lingered for decades. That same pattern resurfaces in claims by Kirk Burrows in the Netflix docuseries Sean Combs, The Reckoning, where he alleges that Wallace did not want to travel to Los Angeles in March 1997 after Shakur's death, but was pushed to go, canceling a safer London trip for what was described as business promotion. Hours after leaving a party on March 9th, Wallace was killed in a drive-by shooting that remains unsolved. The gunman described as a black male in a blue tuxedo who vanished into the Los Angeles night. No one has ever been charged, yet questions persist about whether decisions made by his inner circle placed him in danger. Former LAPD Detective Greg Kading has suggested Combs was more than unhelpful in the investigation, theorizing that obstructing one case may have shielded deeper scrutiny into the other, linking the deaths of two icons, two drive-by shootings, two unsolved mysteries, into a single narrative of power, silence, and enduring suspicion around a man never charged yet never free from whispers.
Keefe D named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac.
Perhaps the most chilling sign that there may be substance behind the swirling allegations comes from a 2025 civil lawsuit unrelated to the Shakur trial, but centered on Sean Combs' alleged private conduct. In the complaint, a man named Steve Otis accuses Combs of a violent assault in a Midtown hotel suite in 2012, claiming he was incapacitated and attacked, but it is the alleged threat that followed that has drawn the most attention. According to the filing, Combs allegedly warned him, "If I can get Tupac Shakur hit, what do you think can happen to you?" The statement, as described in the lawsuit, stands out not only for its menace, but for its specificity, invoking one of the most infamous unsolved tragedies in music history as a form of intimidation rather than making a vague threat. If the allegation were proven true, it would suggest a calculated willingness to leverage a dark chapter of hip-hop lore as a tool of control, a remark that reads less like reckless bravado and more like something far heavier in implication.
If that's part of the indictment, that's somewhat like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak-offs. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, "Yo, listen here, you did it once and you're gonna do it again." That ain't gonna make it with the government or nobody.
The defense's apparent gamble that Sean Combs will simply deny every allegation on the stand overlooks the argument that his denials themselves may reflect a long-standing pattern of image management. In a 2016 interview on The Breakfast Club, he brushed aside rumors by saying, "We don't talk about things that are nonsense," refusing to engage rather than directly refute specific claims. A year later, on The Wendy Williams Show, he expressed a sense of responsibility for the notorious Biggie's death, but framed it as regret over a canceled London trip he said Biggie persuaded him to skip. Subtle shifts in narrative that critics argue accumulate over time and suggest careful perception control. That scrutiny intensified after FBI raids on his Miami and Los Angeles properties in March 2024, where investigators reportedly seized large quantities of personal items prosecutors linked to alleged gatherings. Although Combs was acquitted of the most serious trafficking charges, convictions on Mann Act related counts reinforced the government's portrayal of him as someone who leveraged wealth and influence in exploitative ways. Ongoing forfeiture actions targeting assets, including a $61.5 million Los Angeles mansion, a $48 million Miami Beach home, and a private jet, signal not just financial jeopardy but an effort to dismantle what prosecutors describe as a long-protected infrastructure of power. Stripped of publicists, handlers, and carefully curated appearances, the situation now centers on a defendant in federal custody awaiting whether a Las Vegas jury will credit the testimony of a confessed gangster who claims he was acting under orders.
I don't think they are scared of him. I think they more so, they don't want him to embarrass their reputation and things that they've been known for. You understand?
This is the impossible corner that now defines Sean Combs, caught between a past that refuses to fade and a present that appears to be unraveling. The trial of Duane Davis has grown beyond a single homicide prosecution, evolving into what many see as a reckoning over decades of rumor, loyalty, and silence surrounding the killing of Tupac Shakur. If Combs were to testify and categorically deny the accusations, critics argue he risks bolstering the defense of a man who has claimed he was paid to eliminate a hip-hop icon. If he refuses, skeptics may interpret that silence as self-protection. There is no simple exit from that dilemma, and both legal teams understand the stakes. Meanwhile, Davis, known as Keefe D, sits in a Las Vegas jail cell awaiting trial, projecting the posture of someone with little left to lose and, according to prosecutors, a story that could reshape how history remembers the most infamous unsolved chapters in rap's past.
We're not taking this case trying to win it on a technicality. We're obviously still getting up to speed on the case, but we anticipate.
With the trial of Duane Davis scheduled for 2026, though some reports suggest it could slip into 2027, the world is left watching the slow countdown to what may become one of the most consequential legal battles in hip-hop history, tied to the killing of Tupac Shakur and the long-cast shadow over Sean Combs. The central question is no longer simply whether Combs will be forced to confront decades of suspicion, but whether the truth, whatever it may be, can withstand the collision of testimony, denial, and strategy. Is Davis a desperate man fabricating stories to save himself, or is he the only insider willing to voice what parts of the industry have whispered about for nearly 30 years? If Combs were to take the stand and deny any bounty, would that settle doubts, or merely deepen them for skeptics who question past decisions surrounding figures like the notorious Biggie? And if prosecutors avoid pursuing broader conspiracy theories, is that disciplined legal focus, or restraint shaped by the gravity of accusing powerful individuals without definitive proof? However it unfolds, the case represents a pivotal moment, and its next chapter may prove decisive in addressing one of music's longest-running controversies.